It's time for the Mac Geek Gab, and this week's quick tip comes from me, Pilot Pete. If you need to get into system settings, simply hit the Option key and touch either the brightness, the mission control, or one of the audio up or down keys. Option plus brightness will bring up system settings and your brightness. Mission control brings up your displays, and obviously your audio brings up your system settings sound. No more having to type it, search it out with your mouse. Quick, in and easy. More quick tips like this, plus your questions today on Mac Geek Gab number 990 for Monday, July 10th, 2023.
Folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in or we share quick tips like that. We answer your questions. We take your cool stuff found. We share those too. We put it all together into an agenda that has a flow to it, that keeps us engaged, that maybe has some common threads. The goal being that each and every one of us learns at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include LinkedIn.com/MGG, where you can go and post your first job for free on LinkedIn Jobs, Notion.com/MacGeekGab, where you can go also for free and try out Notion projects, and Zocdoc.com/MGG, where you can go and sign up, yes, for free, and download their app today. We'll talk more in depth about each of those things that you get to do a little bit later in the episode. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here for a couple more days in Lee, New Hampshire, it's Pilot Pete. Good to be back, Dave.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back. I like that opening tip. That's it is not the first time. It's not the first time I've heard it, but my fingers don't know it, so I don't use it as often as I want to. I can't
tell you how many times I've stumbled across. I hit Command Space and I start typing in system settings, I pull down the Apple and I'm trying to get in and adjust my sound settings all the time.
Right.
Boom. Quick one, it's up. Oh.
Yep. I like it. Yeah, no, it's great. This is why we share these quick tips. It's for all of us, you folks, us included. Like we all benefit from these. It's great. Speaking of, Tony has kind of a little workaround as a quick tip, which I like. He says, my wife was having trouble making out details at some website she was visiting where she was trying to buy a shirt. As she is using an iPad without a keyboard, I couldn't show her the simple Command plus or Command minus or Command 0. So I tried showing her the zoom in accessibility. She found that too difficult. So instead, I had her take a screenshot and then switch to photos and just use the pinch to zoom in and out on the screenshot and see the content on the webpage. He says, sometimes he says even the accessibility features are too difficult to do in the moment. And it's true. And what's nice about the screenshot thing is accessibility, when you zoom in, will change some of the elements on the page, like text usually, but not all of the elements. It won't often, and it depends on how the web page is written, but often images stay the same size and the text just gets bigger when you use the accessibility thing. So, there you go. I like that tip. A related tip to that, Pete, that I found out about this week. I think I read something that John Gruber posted somewhere or something. I can't remember. But you can go into accessibility and change all kinds of these settings system wide, right? So you could do that. Did you know that you can go into accessibility, scroll all the way to the bottom and do per app accessibility settings? So you could have one web browser that is set to, 120% text size, whereas your main web browser is not. So you can set like Firefox to, larger text size. And yeah, you go in and I should pull up my phone because you could do this on iPhone and iPad. You go into settings and you go to accessibility and then scroll all the way to the bottom and you will see per app settings. In there, you add an app. And then once you've added the app, you get basically a duplicate of all the accessibility settings that you could set for that would manipulate a given app, and you get to customize them just for that app, which
well hidden at the bottom.
I had no idea. Like right. I love it. Love it. So this is why we love quick tips.
Yeah. Well, let me tell one then, because Todd wrote in, and let me go back a second. There's an old joke. What's the definition of neurotic? It's the guy who presses the elevator button 40 times to close the door before it actually closes. So Todd sends
What are you trying to say about me, Pete? What are you trying to say?
It's me. I may be a little neurotic. That's why I like this quick tip. If you're on your phone and you're trying to get the apps to wiggle so you can delete them or put them into a folder or move them around from screen to screen, you have to sit there and press. And if you I counted 3 potatoes, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato before I got them to wiggle.
Sure.
Todd discovered that if you touch the screen in between each of the icons, it takes about somewhere between half and 0.7 seconds for the icons to start wiggling.
What?
So you say,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 seconds faster. So for those of us who are neurotic and are in a hurry to get our apps wiggling, it's clearly a difference.
Oh my God. Like what? Yeah, because you've got to get through when you're holding down on an app, you've got to get through like the app's long press menu.
And it wants
yeah, of course.
But if you just touch the screen, they
between
start wiggling
the apps
in about half a second.
Amazing.
So for those of us in a hurry.
Oh man, that's great.
It's a great tip, Todd. Thank you.
That is a great tip. Yeah, I'll say. Chicago Tom, last week I asked how people were using Siri on their Macs, right? It's something I don't do. I want to learn how others do it so that I can see if there's a use case for me, right? I don't just want to presume there's not one because I'm not yet doing it, right? And Chicago Tom says, he says, you guys might recall that I was the one that was happy to find a keyboard shortcut to activate Siri. Right. Okay. Yeah. He says, that's because I use it all the time. He says, I have type to Siri activated on my Mac so that you can give Siri commands with the keyboard as opposed to, voice. And he says, I do not have the Hey S Lady active. And the reason is because I work in a shared office space and the people around me can hear me when I talk. I don't want to disturb them. And occasionally I don't want them to know what I am doing. Fair. A good example of how he uses Siri on his Mac. He says, during a meeting, I may want to take a quick little note to remind myself to take care of something or do something that comes up during the conversation. I hit the Siri shortcut on my keyboard, and in the little prompt box, I type a text replacement for take a note that says. So the words that his text replacement, expands to are take a note that says. His replacement is XXNN. So, but it doesn't matter, right? And then he types the note. He says, yes, I could use Apple's Quick Notes feature in the Notes app, but I find when I do, the new Quick Note window steals the focus and may move me away from, for instance, a Zoom window in full screen. Even when it doesn't take up the screen real estate, my method above avoids all of that. So as he's doing this, I'm thinking, one thing I do all the time with Siri in the car is as I'm driving, it's that you kind of get into that meditative zoning sort of headspace when you're in the car. And I'll think of like, I have good ideas. So, I have ideas. Occasionally they're good, but I know that even if an idea is the best idea I've ever come up with in my life, I will not necessarily remember it once I am in a spot to do something about it, right? Like I'll think there's zero chance that I will forget about this. This is amazing.
It's so brilliant. I couldn't possibly forget it.
Couldn't possibly forget. And yet,
wait a minute, what was I thinking?
And yet there will be things that sort of distract you. It doesn't make it into long-term memory, right? So I routinely use Siri in the car. I'll say, Siri, remind me today. And I either say today or tomorrow. If I don't give a date, then it will put it into my reminders either way. But an undated reminder is also something I don't see. It's like I have to go and look for them. I don't, because I sort my reminders by day and the undated stuff just falls to the bottom. At least the way that I look at it. So I say, Siri, remind me today and then whatever. And it puts it on my my reminders list, on my to-do list. And then from there, I can either take an action on it or, put if it needs to be something that's more fleshed out, it's just a little, it's a reminder. That's what it is. And so I find myself wanting to do that in the middle of meetings, just like Chicago Tom says, for the same reason. And I will just switch to my calendar app. I use BusyCal, and I will add a reminder, but that does bring my focus out of the meeting. It's more with the little Siri window, the bubble that pops up. You could just type it right in there. So I think this might be the killer app for Dave for using Siri on the Mac is I'll come up with a little shortcut that'll say, remind me today, like, RMT or something. And then boom, just type whatever I want. So yeah, I like this.
Well, what would be remind me tomorrow? RMT. No, wait.
Sorry. It doesn't really matter to me for the purposes that
you later.
It's as long as it puts it on there, in like where I will see it, Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So.
No, I learned a long time ago to try and write those things down too, because like you say, there's no way I'll forget it. And then.
Oh, there's a guaranteed way you will forget it, or at least that I will. Yeah. No, our memories. I have an excellent memory for lots of things, but not for all the things. And and that has bitten me before, because I'm like, I can remember like every one of my credit card numbers I've ever had and all this stuff. Like, I have however my brain works, I'm good at remembering that kind of stuff. That leads me to the fallacy that I am good at remembering all the things. And that is a fallacy.
And as you know, with age, more penguins jump off the iceberg.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. The good news is I was reading something about this recently. The good news is with age, certainly our ability to remember specific things it does dwindle. Like, it's just how it works. But our minds get better at perceiving bigger picture things as we age. And here's the wonderful thing about that, as someone who is actively aging and hasn't really been able to do anything about that. Well, I suppose there's a way to stop the aging process, but I don't want to do that either.
Then you're passively aging, and that's
very different. Yes, I don't want that at all. No, I'm very happy. I lead a charmed life, and I want to continue leading it. But with we have all these devices that are much better than even our younger selves were at remembering bits and pieces of information. So it's like it's like a superpower in a sense. Aging enhances our minds in a way that at least thus far, our computing devices, doing things that our computing devices cannot do, seeing big picture stuff, and maybe they'll get there someday, but right now, no. So every day I get better at that, and every day my computers get better at remembering the things that I'm forgetting. And so as long as I remember to use them for that, I'm in good shape.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And there's billions of them around the world.
And that's the thing. Yeah.
Powers.
For better and for worse. Yeah.
Yes.
Listener Matt, who is also an indie developer, reminds us that Matt Corey reminds us that this coming week, Tuesday into Wednesday, July 11th and 12th, is Indie. What I want to make sure I get the name of this right. Indie App Sales Day, and there is a link that I'll put in the show notes. It's a GitHub page, so everybody should be able to see it. And there's all kinds of apps that will be having discounts. Some of them are Mac OS apps. Some of them are, iPhone and iPad apps. So there's some great stuff on here. Matt's the one who makes Signals for HomeKit, and I think that's going to be 40% off this week. And there's actually one of the in-app purchases, the Automate in-app purchase, is going to be 43% off this week. So yeah, good stuff. So thank you for reminding us of that, Matt, and happy to share. So yeah, good stuff. We have a couple of PSAs to share with you all that I swear I will find here. The first one comes from in our Discord from someone affectionately called Old Guy.
Another geezer, just like me.
Just like us. Yeah, exactly. Someone who is actively aging, just like the rest of us. We currently run our T-Mobile monthly payments through a credit card that offers phone loss damage insurance. T-Mobile announced last week, that in order to maintain our automatic payment discount, we'll need to move our payment to a debit card, thus losing insurance coverage. Any suggestions for plans that are reasonable? And I don't know that there is an insurance plan that's reasonable for a phone. I suppose that depends on you and your penchant for losing or destroying phones. But Pogo Kelly suggested it might actually be cheaper for you to forego the credit card or the debit card discount, continue paying with your credit card that gives you that loss and damage insurance, and pay the delta. That might be
some of the platinum cards and such often offer that. So.
Yeah, and that's what he's been doing. And of course, T-Mobile doesn't want to pay those fees anymore because that's how credit cards work. Whenever your rewards card, the merchant pays for your rewards, not like your credit card company. That's not the goodness of their heart. It's literally the merchants who pay those fees. And T-Mobile clearly doesn't want to pay those anymore. And my guess is enough people are using rewards cards, so that's why they made this decision.
So the debit card, you pay for the fees.
Yeah,
directly.
That's
more directly. Yeah.
Well,
the merchant doesn't pay. You pay the merchant. The merchant pays. Comes out of their profit.
But there's no rewards debit cards. There's no rewards fees on debit cards.
Very good point. Yes.
That's the difference here. Is they don't have to pay those. Yeah. So, but
I was just going to say, I don't use debit cards for the security reason that if someone compromises your card, it's out of your checking account until you get it proven. At least it used to be that way. It's been many years, and I've just always avoided debit cards for that reason.
I got burned by the same thing over a holiday weekend. It was like a Memorial Day weekend. Somebody, and now I can't remember if it was the checking account I use or the checking account Lisa uses. I'm pretty sure it's the one Lisa uses. And they, burned through whatever she had in that account. And she was like, why am I getting like bounce check? What's going on here? And it probably took 60 days for the bank to finally return all of the money that was spent out of that account. I think it depends on your bank, and it's worth checking with your bank. Certainly back then, this was 10 years ago. Yeah. Exactly what you said was correct. It is, you pay for it until the case
guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, it's guilty until proven innocent, or at least charged until proven otherwise. Whereas with credit cards, it's the other way around. And I've heard that debit cards, some of them have gotten better, but like you, Pete, I just use a credit card for everything. So that's one option. The other option is to move it to your debit card if you so choose, but forego paying someone else for phone insurance and just self-insure. That's the path I chose years ago because managing, phones for the four of us while the kids were growing up and all that stuff, paying whatever it was, $15 a month times 4 very quickly adds up to the price of a new phone and keeps adding. Right. And I figured, that we are pretty good with our phones. We all keep our phones in cases. It's been a long time since we've destroyed or lost a phone. I had to knock on some wood. But I know it will happen, and we've saved more than enough, and are in a position where if and when one of us loses a phone or breaks our phone, decide what works for you, obviously. But,
Brian in Arizona in the Discord chat mentions that it's kind of a workaround. Get a small checking account, put a small amount in there, get a debit card, and you use your benefit that way. So it's a workaround. It's a second checking account. As long as there's no fees on it and all that, right? You got to find a bank that doesn't fee you like crazy.
Yes.
So, and one other thing about a debit card that I found out just briefly, Zelle is kind of like Venmo and all those others. I have sent money with Zelle before. Someone tried to send me money with Zelle. Guess what you can't do without a debit card? Take money for Zelle.
Interesting.
So,
I had to.
All right, send it Venmo. Because I'm not.
I had to convert my ATM card into a debit card sometime in the last 5 years for something. And it was, I don't think it was Zelle, but it was something where it was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But the bank, I'm with Citibank still. I still, because I was an employee there a lifetime ago, I still get some free checking benefits. So I stick with that.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know when that's going to end. Really, I should get a bank that's closer to
Probably
me.
the same time your DirecTV is going to end.
I don't have DirecTV.
Oh, I thought you did.
No.
Was it? Oh,
the DirecTV stream. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, we don't want that to end either. That's been a nice thing. Yeah, it was good for 3 months 2 years ago. 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Allison over at NosillaCast shares an important thing, PSA here, for Tailscale users who like living on the edge. She says, I got a call today for help from Mr. Ed in our Discord, who is a listener to both of our shows, because he was running the Sonoma developer beta and his keyboard stopped working. Even an external keyboard wouldn't work, and the problem survived a reboot. Allison says, I found a Reddit thread where people were having the same issue, and 2 people said that quitting Tailscale fixed it. Ed used his mouse like an animal to open Activity Monitor and force Tailscale to quit since it wouldn't quit from the menu bar, and keyboard was restored. So if you are using Tailscale, maybe don't use that with the Sonoma developer beta, or at the very least, or either beta, because the public beta and the developer beta are close enough that my guess is the problem would persist in both. But be aware of that potentially being a problem for you. All right. Hey, look, you know that feeling you get when you finally find the thing you've been searching for on the internet? After spending hours researching and reading thousands of reviews, you find it. This thing, whatever it is. Maybe you want some sparkly disco pants, or maybe you want a new hard drive for your disk station, or whatever it is. It literally checks all of your boxes and it has 5 stars. Oh, and it arrives in just 48 hours. So why is it that you can get the most random, wonderfully reviewed thing from around the world in just 2 days? But if you want to see a good doctor, it can take forever to get an appointment. Not to mention, how do you know if they're even good? Thankfully, there is a way. It's our sponsor called Zocdoc, a place to find and book great doctors who actually have amazing reviews, many with appointments available within 24 hours. Zocdoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online. We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for. These docs all have verified reviews from actual, real patients, not bots. The average wait time to see a doctor booked on Zocdoc is between just 24 and 48 hours. That's it. You can even score same-day appointments sometimes. I've used this, and I think you're going to love it. It really works. It's amazing. Go to Zocdoc.com/MGG and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/MGG, Zocdoc.com/MGG, and our thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this episode. I think we all know that these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, right? You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out our sponsor, LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. We run small businesses here, very small, and we need to make sure we have exactly the right people and definitely not have the wrong people. We've used LinkedIn Jobs many times. Most recently, we talked about using it to hire Sadie. She has been a fantastic addition to this team. And LinkedIn makes it so easy. You just go, you create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, then you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And then you use their simple tools like these screening questions, which make it so easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience and, you know, that je ne sais quoi, right? That so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You've really got to check this out. And finding the right team member is key for your business, just like it is for mine. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk with faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/MGG. That's linkedin.com/MGG to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And our thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for sponsoring this episode. I think many of you are like me, and getting work done can feel impossible some days, right? Especially if you're tracking tasks, writing docs, and setting goals in 3 different places or more than 3 different places. If this sounds like you, then listen up, right? Notion, our sponsor, is an incredible tool that makes it so much easier to make progress on your projects. And this is why I love Notion. And today, I'm excited to share that they've just launched Notion Projects, which includes new, powerful ways to manage projects and leverage the power of their built-in AI features too. Notion Projects combines project management with your docs, your knowledge base, and AI, so you can stop jumping between different tools and stop paying too much for them too. With Notion, you get to do it all in just one workspace, and you can do everything you need to get your projects over the finish line, from the brainstorming to the drafting of the plans to organizing sprints to keeping everybody on track. It's all super customizable. There's also powerful filtering and automation features, which we love, so you can work on exactly the things you want to work on exactly the way you want to. Do your most efficient work with Notion Projects. You can try it for free today at notion.com/Mac Geek Gab. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/Mac Geek Gab. Then when you use our link, of course, you're supporting the show, which is great. Go right now, notion.com/Mac Geek Gab. And our thanks to Notion for sponsoring this episode.
All right, Dave, what do you say we answer a question or 2?
I think we should answer maybe 5.
Oh, okay. 5 it is. All right. And maybe we'll learn 5 new things. Who knows? So listener Gary writes in, "Hey, I was watching something on Prime Video on my iPad Air. I tried to take a screenshot, but it came out blank. Any idea why? It was the Avengers from the early 60s, and I wanted an image of Patrick McNee and Diana Rigg. Just a still image, not video. Guess what? Amazon Prime, and I think Netflix does this too, and probably a whole bunch of other streaming services. No screenshot for you. All right, no soup for you. You're not getting it. Yeah, I think it's DRM blocking it. I've experienced the same issue, I'm certain, with other streaming services.
No, it makes sense. Fair. I mean, they certainly have the control of doing that when it's happening inside the app. So yeah, all right, yeah.
Right. So I believe the only workaround to that is to take your trusty iPhone out and take a picture, pause it and take a picture of the.
Okay. That would work. If you watch it on your Mac in a web browser, you could take a screenshot of the web browser. Like that's going to work. Yeah, maybe. I seem to recall, and I could be wrong, I seem to recall trying to use Capto to record my screen at one point, and it would not let me do a stream capture. Okay. Yeah, they're pretty clever over there, not letting that DRM go down range. I thought I was able to take screenshots of those things on my Mac. And to that end, another thing to try would be launch Amazon Prime in a web browser on your iPad and try to take a screenshot of that.
Oh yeah, as opposed to the
app. the client app. Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't think of that as being a workaround.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it theoretically it should work. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. There's always and I'd be curious. I'm sure it doesn't work, but just because this is how my brain works and I want to know, I don't like to assume these things. I would be curious what happens if you turn on screen recording on your iPad and then go into the Amazon app and start playing, or Netflix and start playing. My guess is you're not going to get anything, but it sure would be interesting to know.
That's what my guess too. Although if you do it first, maybe it matters the order in which
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. If you know, let us know. Feedback at macgeekgab.com. Or if you have a question or a quick tip or, whatever, that's also a good place to send it.
Whoa, wait a minute. Where? Feedback at macgeekgab.com?
Yeah, feedback at macgeekgab.com. Or you could do what JTRay did with his next question and post it in our MGG help desk over on Discord at macgeekgab.com/Discord. And then not only do you get the any knowledge that Pete and or I might be able to bring to things, you get the hive mind knowledge of everybody in the Mac Geek Gab family, and that's awesome. JT asks, As we all know, the maximum iCloud storage Apple offers is 2 terabytes. In an attempt to add more, I thought about Family Share. I'm wondering if I could create more and more iCloud accounts, sharing the data from those to a primary ID. So, and Brian Monroe pointed this out because, again, the Hive Mind on Discord, that the Family Share pools the data, the storage, together. So adding more accounts doesn't add to the storage pool in a meaningful way. You're just paying for one pool and getting it across multiple accounts. However, when you have an Apple One plan, you can get up to 4 terabytes of storage on your Apple account. So that might be really the way to do it. And it is one way to do it. I'm curious though, has anybody out there actually hit this limit of 2 terabytes? And if so, what happens? Like, is there some, unpublished thing that Apple has where it's like, oh yeah, if you need more, just tell us and we'll charge you this like hidden thing and then you'll have more. Like, is it really a hard and fast limit that there's no way around, or is there actually a way around it? That I would love to know.
That's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah. And I feel like I've just never hit that limit, and I'm not close enough that it's like, oh, someday soon I'll get to, so but I want to know. Like, so if you know, yeah.
If you don't have the 2 terabyte, if you've got the smaller plan, that when you, for instance, switch over your iPhone,
yeah,
it lets you use more storage, and then it takes it all away, which shows that Apple knows that what they offer at the bottom tier is nowhere near enough.
Yeah. Right.
So that's a little frustrating, but
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like I've seen that happen, but what happens if you're at the top? Like that's what I want to know. Oh,
I bet, I don't know. I bet you start getting the warnings like Google. I'd be surprised if they offer more. I could be wrong.
Why wouldn't they? Right? I mean, clearly they have enough storage to give you more and charge you for it. Like, right. This is just simple business to me. So yeah. I don't know.
Somebody knows.
There are things I don't understand. I do have a fairly good working knowledge of Wi-Fi, though.
Yes.
And the Mac mommy, Melissa, over there in our Discord asks, how often do you replace your router or mesh setup? My current mesh is a TP-Link that is Wi-Fi 5. Her cable company, Cox, recently upgraded the network, and now my speeds have been doubled. Yay. And she has a DOCSIS 3.1 modem, so all good there. But must I also now upgrade to Wi-Fi 6? The reason I ask is because I suspect my router may be causing a bottleneck in the speed, or it could be all the wireless devices that we have connected simultaneously. I also wonder if my network Ethernet switch could be causing a slowdown. I'll retest everything now that the Cox upgrade seems to be complete, but it was looking like I only get the full speed when connected directly to the modem with Ethernet, and then I get less than half once I connect the rest of our devices via Wi-Fi, or maybe that's normal. How much should one expect the speed to be reduced when the whole household is connected via mesh Wi-Fi? So my general advice, we'll go into details here. My general advice is don't just replace your router for the heck of it. Even if you can prove that your Wi-Fi is a bottleneck, that's still not necessarily a good reason in my mind to replace it, because your Wi-Fi with today's, ISP speeds that we get, I mean, you can, like, many areas of the country and the world can get gigabit speeds to your house. Very few people are ever going to, with today's technology, see gigabit speeds over Wi-Fi. So your Wi-Fi is always going to be a bottleneck, at least in a theoretical or a test case sense. Like, you'll be able to prove that it's a bottleneck. But like for me, in my office, I have Wi-Fi 6E devices, right? Like that, I have the Eero 6E, and I get the same when I test other things. And my office is it's isolated from the house. There's not a ton of Wi-Fi devices. It's not right next to the neighbors. And I get 600 to 700 megabits per second in both directions, up and down, when I test on Wi-Fi. Those are great speeds, but it's not gigabit. Like my network is capable of gigabit. My internet connection, because it's fiber, is capable of gigabit. But I only see that when I'm connected on Ethernet. The question to ask, I think, is when do I need that kind of speed on my phone or on my Mac that's connected via Wi-Fi? Like what am I trying to do that is being hampered by, or what do I want to do that I can't do because my speeds are hampering me from doing that? And your Macs might be those things, right? Especially if you're doing a lot of online backups, or if you're transferring large files around in an office setting. And of course, lots of us have home offices these days, but that's really the question is, what are you doing that's being slowed down, and what can't you do because of this technical bottleneck? Is like, that would be the question to answer. If you're getting, my general feeling is, for most of us, is that if you test your speeds and you're getting on your Wi-Fi devices, if you're getting, above 200 megabits per second, you're probably going to be fine. If you're getting less than that, then it's time to look at why are you getting less than that? Is it that you have the wrong mesh technology, or older mesh technology, and newer mesh technology would be faster for you? If the answer to that is yes, then maybe that's the right thing. Or is it that you have way more client devices now than you used to, and somehow that's slowing down your mesh? The number of devices doesn't necessarily slow you down, but it can. And certainly, as Brian Monroe in our chat points out, newer Wi-Fi standards support more Wi-Fi devices at sort of native speeds. So that can be a reason, yes, if you've got lots of devices, for sure. But ask the question first. Don't just presume you need to upgrade by default. Like find where your problem is. There was some discussion in Discord about, I don't have any Wi-Fi. One person said, I don't have any Wi-Fi 6E devices, so there's no reason to upgrade my mesh to Wi-Fi 6E. And I think that while all those things could be true, I think another way to interpret it is that's a great reason to upgrade your mesh to Wi-Fi 6E if you need more speed between your mesh points. Because if your mesh is speaking at Wi-Fi 6E, which operates on a different band than Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 5, then you have less interference in that band because you don't have any client devices, right? And so now your wireless backhaul, which is the connection between your mesh points, is freer and clearer. I don't want to say free and clear, but it's less congested. And that can work out really well. Remember, like the idea of a mesh network with multiple access points has been around for a very long time. It was mostly only implementable via a wired backhaul, like Ethernet connecting all of our mesh points, up until 802.11ac hit, right? Wi-Fi 5. When that hit, that meant that we could have faster speeds for our backhaul. And, even though Wi-Fi 5 is operating at 5 gigahertz and it's not as good as going through walls as 2.4, the signaling protocols they used for that made it so that you got faster speeds. And that's what opened the door for companies like Eero and all the others to start making wireless mesh products for us consumers. And so they did. And obviously it's worked out really well. But yeah, having greater capabilities for your mesh to talk isn't necessarily a bad thing and can be a really good thing. So, but more and more devices are doing 6 and 6E. But yeah, so I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
No, that's a great point.
Yep. Yeah. So
I was actually going to say, when you started talking about they're communicating betwixt themselves at 6E, I was just sitting there thinking, well, that's kind of like they're wired together. So, and like you said, the original mesh was wired. That's how they talk to each other and then send out the signal. So
yes. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's and a wired mesh is still going to be, if you can wire your mesh points together, it's
more reliable.
Way more reliable, and it might even be faster. Probably is faster. Yeah. But whether you'll actually notice those speeds, I don't know if it matters. Is really kind of the thing. So yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or do what I do. And if it ain't broke, fix it till it is.
Fix it till it is.
Because
you can.
Have we ever named an episode, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is?
I think we just did.
Well, if we
Today.
haven't yet, I don't know. While we're on the Wi-Fi subject, and hopefully someone searches our site to find out if we've ever named an episode, that Jamie asks on the Wi-Fi thing, I am adding an access point to my existing Unify network, which runs on the Synology RT6600AX. So the Synology, I'm presuming here, is doing the sort of gateway and routing and all of that of the network, and then the Unify access points are the Wi-Fi points. So great. Prior to adding the new access point, the RT6600AX is the only Wi-Fi router or access point. These two devices, Unify and Synology, are obviously not the same brand, and they won't form a mesh. That's mostly true. And by the strict definition, I think that is true. He says a Unify access point will be connected by wired Ethernet to the Synology. Right. Okay, good. I want both devices to carry the same 3 SSIDs, my main network, my guest network, and my IoT network. And I know how to configure all of that as far as the devices and VLANs go. But should I do anything special to help the devices cooperate and not conflict on the Wi-Fi bands? The new unit will be in the garage, but the devices will definitely have overlapping coverage. I'm expecting my client devices to more or less automatically choose the stronger signal. Any gotchas here? So, before Eero existed, we talked a lot on this show about, what we now retroactively call the quasi mesh, or, the poor man's mesh, although I'm not sure that we saved money doing this. So I think that quasi mesh might be better.
Well, that's what makes you a poor man.
Yeah, exactly. But I would run, 2 or 3 different routers. I would put one in router mode and I would put the others in bridge mode. And I would set, and I was even doing this with Apple Airport devices at times. Like it didn't matter. I would mix and match things, and I would set the SSIDs to be the same and the passwords to be the same, so that as devices jumped from one to the other, it would be relatively seamless. You as the user wouldn't have to do anything. And what I did then was manually made sure, as best I could, that I was not having the channels overlap with each other. So I would manually set the channel on, one device. If we're talking 2.4 gigahertz, I would try and have them, 1, 6, and 11. And, the devices that were overlapping with each other, I would have 1 on 1 and 1 on 6 if I could, or, whatever. And then the same with 5 gigahertz, you're just finding different channels that are not in use. And Wi-Fi Explorer is a great app for that. It is part of SetApp. So I'll put a link to Wi-Fi Explorer in the show notes, but it's a good app to be able to see where it literally will show you. You run it on your Mac and it shows you. And by the way, move your Mac around the house so that you see what's, congested in each spot. Don't just presume one spot's going to be the same as the other, because it's not. That's not how it works. But that's how I did it. Now, I will point out that most of the mesh systems, including the ones we recommend here on this show today, do not use different channels. They use the same channels, but they are aware of each other. They can theoretically adjust the power levels of those radios to get the right amount of overlap without too much, because that's really important. If you having a signal blasting at 100% is part of the problem of Wi-Fi congestion in like apartment buildings. I remember years ago when we had Alf Watt on the show. He was in charge at Apple of writing a bunch of the original airport code and all of that. And then after he left Apple, he was the one who made iStumbler for a long time, which I think the development has stopped on that, which is why we recommend Wi-Fi Explorer now. But Alf was saying, oh yeah, you could fit way more Wi-Fi signals into an apartment without congestion if everybody would just talk to each other and set their power levels to what they needed for their own device, for their own, spaces, and not just blasting at full power. But anyway, most people don't do that. So that is some of the stuff you can do. I know the Unify devices will let you adjust power levels. I don't know if Synology has something in the user interface for that, but I would still, if I were doing what listener Jamie is asking about, I would absolutely use different channels today, because it just makes life easier, and you're not going to be interfering. So, but yeah, those quasi meshes work great. In the end, whether you have a mesh that's controlled by, all one vendor or one like a quasi mesh like this, the final decision as to which access point a client device associates with is up to the client device. Now, there are protocols for the mesh to communicate down to the clients and say, please join that one, not this one. And then they can even block a client by, its MAC address from associating, and that will sometimes nudge a client to go somewhere else. But it really is all about convincing the client to go. So I don't know. That's what I got. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Did I miss anything on that, Pete? Questions?
No, I think that covers it perfectly.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, no, okay. And with iStumbler out, I will say that I think it was Porthos John pointed out that yes, if you option click your Wi-Fi signal in your bar, in the toolbar at the top, you can get information about your signal strength and that sort of thing. And okay. I know I shared this as a quick tip way long time ago. If you go to the bottom of that window that pops up and click on Wi-Fi settings, I'm sorry, that isn't the right one. It was diagnostics. If you click on open wireless diagnostics, but then ignore that and go to the window menu, then you can get all kinds of scan information and that sort of thing. We shared that a long time back. So you option click Wi-Fi, click on open wireless diagnostics, but rather than clicking continue, go up to the menu and click on window, and then you can get into assistant log scan performance sniffer. So
yep,
it's kind of a shortcut into what's available from wireless diagnostics.
Yeah. So. I like it. You can see some of the signal strength stuff on your iPhone. It's wonky, but you can do it. You have to have the airport utility app on your phone first, and then make sure you go into settings. I know this is convoluted. Go into the settings for the airport utility app, and at the bottom of those settings, turn on the Wi-Fi scanner option. Then launch the airport utility, and in the upper right will be this little sort of janky button. It's really just a text button. Like it's terrible. Like the UX of it is terrible. It's non-Apple. But tap the Wi-Fi scan button, and then when you're there, tell it to scan. It will take a beat and scan everything and start showing you all of the access points it sees. So if you have a mesh network, you're going to see, your same SSID listed many times, and it will show you what channel it's on. It will show you the signal strength, the RSSI, I think relative signal strength indicator is what that stands for. And if it doesn't, I think maybe it should.
There you go.
And, these are all negative numbers. 0 dBm is, you will never see. I think that's the theoretical maximum, or it should be. But so looking at the numbers, the lower the negative numbers, so negative, 55 is a weaker signal than negative 49. If that makes sense to all of us. Yep.
But
it's hard to use. The data is just presented in a terrible format there. So you're better off if you have a Mac, use your Mac with Wi-Fi.
First of all, I'm surprised they even still are developing that airport, because Apple doesn't even make an airport anymore, airport utility. But
that's fair.
You
got to be able to manage.
I would have thought they'd have renamed it and given us some of that functionality in there. But here's a cool thing that Tennessee Papa pointed out in Discord. What about your cell phone signal strength? He says dial 3001 pound 12345 pound, and it will give you your cell phone signal strength.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Is that on all carriers?
I do not know.
All right. Well, I'll put that in the show notes. You don't have to remember it, folks. It's already pasted into the show notes.
But I don't know if it's on Mint or not, but and I can't try it because I'm using my cell phone as my camera for the show. So and I don't want to make you all sick whilst watching the
if you happen to be watching the video stream. Yeah, exactly. All right, where are we on time? Yeah, okay, we're doing good. Listener Rich has a question about sort of related to network stuff. He says, I have a Synology 720 Plus. Doesn't really matter that this is a Synology. It's more about Time Machine to a network drive. But he's doing it to a Synology. He says, and he uses that for many things. One of them is to back up his M1 MacBook Pro to a Time Machine shared folder on the disk station. This had been successful, doing a daily backup automatically and occasionally manually started for 6 months. Recently, I saw that I hadn't had a Time Machine backup for about 5 days, so I initiated one manually from the Time Machine menu icon by clicking Backup Now. The process started with connecting to backup disk, but never got farther than that and eventually timed out. I can connect to the server and the shared Time Machine folder on the NAS via the Finder, and that works fine. The username and password works. I, of course, did all the usual things. I rebooted the NAS. I rebooted my MacBook Pro. I even restored my network. Nothing worked. I eventually solved the issue by making a new shared folder on the NAS and starting the process over. What would your troubleshooting steps have been to avoid starting over and losing the previous 6 months of backups? Do you think the same old Time Machine sparse bundle corruption that pops up every now and then was my issue? So, no, I don't think this was the corruption, because the corruption you would be able to connect to the backup disk and probably even the backup, the sparse bundle. It just would have issues and never actually start the backup. But you were stuck in the connecting process. And so it sounds like your Time Machine on your Mac, I want to be specific about this. I don't want to say your Mac couldn't see the shared folder, but Time Machine couldn't see the shared folder. Time Machine stores a different keychain entry than, say, the Finder does. Time Machine's keychain entries and network connection entries are very specific about the name of the share and the protocol used to connect to the share. Time Machine used to only support a protocol called AFP, Apple File Protocol. Now, for several iterations of Mac OS, it has supported SMB, server messaging block. That is a better protocol to use for a network connection. It's more efficient. Apple has moved all of their file sharing to SMB, and your disk station has, if you updated your disk station recently, and this is where it being a disk station might be relevant, it might have told you, hey, Apple recommends using SMB. You should probably turn off AFP. So it's possible that you turned off AFP, but Time Machine was still very much bound to an AFP connection to your disk station. And it couldn't find it because it's not advertised via AFP. Yes, it's advertised.
You just solved one of my problems. Didn't even think about it. Yeah.
I love that. So the trick here, what you did was you connected to a new shared folder, Rich, and that made a new connection. It would have seen only the SMB. And again, I'm making some presumptions here, but if that's the issue, it would have seen SMB. It would have connected that way, saved it in the keychain entry, and all is good. But if you had told your Mac, forget this Time Machine backup, leave it out there, the old one, and then just go through the steps of reconnecting to it, that would have been my first troubleshooting step. Is just, you know what, Time Machine, and it might not even be the AFP versus SMB thing. I've just seen it where Time Machine needs to be taught how to reconnect. If the name of a device on the network changed, or something about your network changed, Time Machine, like I said, it's very specific about the volume to which it's going to back your stuff up. And sometimes I just need to tell it, there it is. I know it's the same thing. I didn't change anything. Yes, something about my network probably did change, so I probably did change something, but let me just reconnect this and it's all good. So that would have been, to answer your question, that would have been my troubleshooting. That would have been the first thing I would do. If I were there, what would I do first or next? That's what I would do, is just manually reconnect it to the existing share. That probably would have solved it for you. Unless you had the corruption issue, then you would have gotten connected and then it wouldn't work. But
yeah. Still, yeah, I just know I have that Time Machine issue where I know the disk is there and it's not seeing it. So I need to go in and I don't know how I'm going to do that. I actually don't know how I'm going to do that though.
Wait,
because
why?
It doesn't see the disk.
Does your Finder see the disk?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
then
network.
what? Okay, again, if I were there, here's what I would do. I would go into Time Machine and remove that disk from Time Machine, just so that you're, giving it a clean slate, essentially. And then I would go into the Finder and connect to that volume, get it up and happy. I know Time Machine's going to make its own connection to it, but having your Mac and confirming that
already talking to it,
right.
and it's actually on my Synology. So
great. Yep. So you get that thing, make sure you can see the Time Machine volume. Okay, great. Then I would just go in and add it again, and hopefully it shows up there. But that would be the first thing to try. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
hate to go back in time, but since time is nonlinear, we need to do that. I changed it in the show notes, but it's asterisk 3001 #12345 #, and I think an asterisk at the end too. But I also put a link to cool cell phone codes that Tennessee Pop, I think, from Discord put up in there.
Awesome. So, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's good to have that correction. That's good stuff. Yeah.
Let's jump forward in time, shall we?
Shall we jump forward in time? You want to take us to Steve's question?
Steve wrote in, hey guys, a question regarding how you handle your photo library. Do you import all of your non-iPhone photos into your iCloud library? Meaning if you have 100 photos you've taken with a DSLR from a family vacation, do you drag those into the Apple Photos library on your Mac so that you have all your photos in one spot? Or is that just a waste of storage space since you're now essentially duplicating all of your photos, the originals and the imports? Thanks for your thoughts and happy 4th. My 4th was good. Hope yours was too, Dave.
Yeah. That was super laid back. It was great.
Yeah. So this is kind of more of a philosophical question than a tech question, but I told him, years ago I started putting all my shots in photos once. First a while, iPhoto, for simplicity's sake. And I somewhere along the line adopted the phrase "let go and let Apple."
Oh.
Obviously, there are cases where it doesn't work for everyone, but with iCloud backing up Photos library, then you're less likely to have a disaster. And I was telling him, I had neighbors years ago who lost a hard drive, and I mean, they sent it to the guys who charge hundreds of dollars to recover data off, and it was trashed and gone. The only photos they had of their children before age 8 was from family and friends. They lost them. They had it all on one hard drive and no backup. It's soul crushing to hear a story like that. So that's just my opinion. Get everything you can into Photos, and then I think you're okay to delete from a separate folder or file on your hard drive. Let Photos do it. Let it take care of it. All your photos are going to go to iCloud, assuming you don't. Now, would I make that my only backup? Oh, goodness, no. Because assuming your iCloud account gets hacked or anything weird like that, right? Multiple layers of backup is the only safe way to ensure you don't lose all this stuff. Period.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
It's the only way to do it.
I haven't heard about Apple losing any photos from anyone. Like there have been zero reports of people saying I did nothing. Apple lost all my photos. That has not happened. If it had, we would be like in a terrible, like that would change everything. And Apple knows it, by the way. Like they know that they have to protect that data. Like their company depends on it because in a sense it does.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that.
But it could happen, and we need to act like it can if we value that data. So I do back up my photos. Yeah.
Yeah. And my point was, what if someone hacks your account and manages to lock you out? If you're someone who doesn't have two-factor authenticate, I don't know if you can even have an iCloud account that isn't two-factor authenticated anymore.
Not with all the services you'd want to use. No.
Yeah. So,
I think that's right.
But the fact remains, there in theory could be a way someone with access to your machine could change your stuff and lock you out of your account and erase it all, or something nefarious like that. Highly unlikely, but entirely possible.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
So, like I say, that was more of a philosophical question than a technical question. But I think you're better off just letting Photos handle it all. It's all in one database, and Apple's got your back.
I agree. I do the same thing. I do have a local copy of my Photos library. I do push that to my Synology so that I can have Synology photos see that same library, but it is truly just a copy of my Apple Photos library. Everything lives in Apple Photos for me. I suppose relating it to JT-Ray's question earlier in this episode, like if you hit your 2 or 4 terabyte maximum because of your photos, then you've got to think about different things. But even then, I don't know. I actually be curious, like for those of you with massive photos libraries, what do you do? Do you archive some stuff off? And if so, to what do you archive it? Like what apps are you using? What storage paradigms are you using to keep all those things?
Yeah.
That would be interesting to know about. You know, whether or not you're hitting your 2 or 4 terabyte limit. Like, you know, if you're not storing all your photos on iCloud and you're intentional about that, where are you storing them? So, where are we here? I don't even know. What's my name here?
Yeah, right now. Rich was. I'm sorry. We did.
No, we
Rich.
we did Rich.
Yeah,
we
Mark.
did Steve. It's time.
Mark was asking about travel when dropping from one of the big mobile carriers.
Yeah. So Mark had, and I will pull up Mark's question because I want to make sure I ask it the right way. He says, my dilemma, I've been on T-Mobile with a simple 4-line simple choice family plan for 8 years now, and it includes my state employee discount for an all-in price of $120 a month. I realize I could get the same plan for $80 a month on Mint Mobile and use T-Mobile's network. He says, there are some T-Mobile perks that I use that makes the $40 in potential savings a bit less, like the MLB package that runs $120 a year and Paramount Plus for $6 a month. He says, so that makes the difference $24 a month instead of $40, but still meaningful. Now, the real issue. He says, I'm going to Alaska next year for a few weeks. So I checked the Mint Mobile website and they show no service in Alaska, and their site says coast to coast coverage.
I can assure you there is no Mint Mobile service in Alaska.
Brilliant. Okay, so that he talked to Mint and they were they said you might have service near one of the airports or something. So that was, and Pete, you might even tell us that that's not the case.
No, it's not. There is no Mint service in Alaska. They also claim there's no Mint service in Hawaii, yet there is.
Okay, so that was my question. How long ago was it how recently have you tested
a few weeks ago.
Okay,
yeah.
Never mind. So there's no Mint service in Alaska. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm glad to know. This is good. So, his thought was, I know T-Mobile will be fine in Alaska, but if I switch to Mint, what do you think will be the best way to have service in Alaska? He says, my wife and I have iPhones 13 and 12s right now, and by next year, it'll be a 13 and a 15. Yep, I understand. I know how this works. My advice would be, you get $24 a month in savings, right? And so you're going next year. So let's say over the course of a year, you're going to save $288, right? On all of this.
Oh, public math, you're doing it.
Well, I'm letting Siri help me. By the way, another quick tip, and I do this without thinking about it. So I'm glad you highlighted this, Pete. Command spacebar, bring up the spotlight search. I typed in 24 asterisk 12. And it comes up with 288. That's how I knew it was $288. You've always got a calculator at your fingertips if your Mac's right there. So you got $288, a limit of $288 to spend on whatever your solution is. Now, if you had to spend all 288 of it to implement some secondary solution, that wouldn't be worth it because you would have the inconvenience of having to figure out and implement the secondary solution. But I'm pretty sure that if you're going to Alaska for a few weeks, let's say a month, you can get 30 days of, data. For US data is expensive, so it's not going to be like Europe data. But still, let's say you pay $30 for, the data that you would need. It's probably not going to be that much. It's probably going to be half that, right? So times 2, you've got eSIMs. You just go to eSIMDB, find and do this a week or two before you travel. Like you can look now just to get a feel for what it would be like if you were going now, but certainly don't buy anything now. And use an eSIM. They're really simple. And eSIMDB is going to be your answer, assuming the site doesn't go down. We're going to have to, that's the twice. Yeah. We got to knock on wood again. I don't know what I would do if that site went down. A And I would probably start a replacement for it because it's super valuable. But you know, just get an eSIM for your Alaska data and you're good to go. It's going to be fine. I really, that's okay. I was going to ask, like, you actually do this more frequently, Pete. So what would you do?
I do, and I haven't used an eSIM up there yet, but that's absolutely what I would do because I just bought a worldwide data last month and used it for the first time, maybe 2 months ago now, and that worked out great. The other option is there's a little piece of gear, and I know I've talked about this before. It comes out of Hong Kong. It's called a Pokefi. Pokefi, and I think it's about $160, and then it's $15 for 5 gigs. And I use and essentially you're on Wi-Fi. You know, that thing connects cellular and use its Wi-Fi for all your access. The hiccup I found on that is often as not my phone. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It says, "Oh, you need to disable airplane mode because." You know, you don't have cell service and you can't make a phone call, even though I have Wi-Fi calling enabled.
Yeah, I know.
It comes up and says, no phone calls for you. So, but WhatsApp and Skype and all that still work.
Sure,
on Wi-Fi.
sure.
So that's my workaround with it. But, and I've also found interesting. This is the weird part.
That's interesting. So you have to have airplane mode off, even if you don't have signal, in order for your phone to make a call on Wi-Fi calling.
Yeah. And I found that to be more true since I put the eSIM on the card.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So,
I mean, my guess is that is a function of Apple's software, right? Like it disables the phone when the phone app.
The phone app.
Yeah, exactly. When it's in airplane mode, it just doesn't function. So like, it doesn't need to be that way, as you've proven with like WhatsApp and Skype, because if they work, it works fine. Yeah, the phone call over Wi-Fi calling would work fine too. So,
So I just told my wife, you know, what I've taken to doing is just tell my wife, look, I turn WhatsApp on when I'm overseas. Call me on WhatsApp, and the phone rings like normal. Works great.
Yeah.
But it only uses data. And interesting, look carefully if you're doing one of those eSIMs overseas. I think you discovered this too, Dave. They'll break it down. They'll give you like 8 gigs of data.
Sometimes
I bought 15 gigs. I said 5, but I think I bought 15. It gives you like 8 gigs of regular data and then 5 gigs or 7 gigs of social media data.
One of the companies.
Yeah,
I forget which one it was. I saw. We talked about that. I saw that plan too. Yeah. But just pay attention. That's all. You know, when you're buying your eSIM, but you will. You're
read all the fine print.
Read the fine print. Yeah. And look for discounts on eSIMDB. Often has coupon codes for carriers. For eSIM providers. And like when we went to Montreal recently, it was the eSIMs that I bought for the 3 of us each. Where I think we got 3 gigs or 5 gigs. I mean, I was 3 gigs for 5 days, which was great. And I think I used a gig and a half. I think my niece used a gig and a half, and Lisa used maybe a gig. Like we always use way less than you think because you're like out doing stuff. You're not just sitting around, and back at our Airbnb or your hotel, you're gonna have Wi-Fi. But it is good to have obviously data connection when you're out and about doing your thing. But the eSIMs were €9. The company we used was YESIM, YESIM, and they were €9. But I had eSIMDB, which referred me to them, by the way, and that's why I would have gone with it. Mm-hmm. Had a €5 coupon, so I paid €4 each, so €12 total, and it's good to go. It's funny. I bought my plan one night, like the day before we left or something, and it was. It turned out to be, $4.33 or something. And then we bought my niece's plan the next morning and it was like $4. I saw the credit card charge notification come through. It was like $4.27. I'm like, oh, exchange rate helped. you're good to go. Yeah.
Save 6 cents.
You saved 6 cents? Yeah. The exchange rate between US and Canada it's very favorable right now for traveling to Canada. It's not so favorable for traveling from Canada to the US, I would suppose. But I have one last thing that I've been playing with for a while and wanted to talk about, Pete, and it is called the Mackie DLZ Creator. This looks like and is a mixer. It's $800, but I'll tell you what it is. It is a mixer built for people podcasting, streaming, YouTube, all of that. It really is built to be sort of your all-in-one solution. And it also connects to your computer, but it has an SD card and it has a USB port. So you could actually record right from this thing to, either an internal card or an external device. So you could do it all right here. It's got 4 XLR and quarter-inch. It's got 4 combo inputs, so you can plug in up to 4 microphones. And then it's got 3 other channels that are sort of assignable to various different things. You can assign them to there's inputs, like more quarter-inch inputs that you can assign them to. You can assign them to a Bluetooth input. You can assign them to USB outputs from your Mac. So your Mac could use, like your Mac, some audio generated from your Mac could go out to this, and you can mix and match those. And then it has a separate, an additional channel for built-in sound effects. So you could have like your theme music and your ding sound and all of that stuff. And there are 6 soft pads on that channel that you can just use to trigger. And there are 4 banks that you can have loaded there. So up to 24 different sounds as you sort of bounce around this.
So it's almost got a mini stream deck built into it.
And in that sense, yes.
Yeah.
It has the capability of auto mixing. So you tell it, okay, I want these 4 channels or these 2 channels. Like if we were just having you and me in there, I want these 2 channels to be, the levels to be equal. Right. Or I want, these 3 channels to be equal, but with 1 to take priority. So if the host starts talking, it ducks the other 2, but otherwise auto mix them so that everybody's equal. You can turn that on or off. And it has 4 headphone outputs, and there are 4 headphone jacks. You can have 4 separate headphone mixes where, you have, you could, like, whatever you want in your ears is different from what I have in my ears. Or if there's something you want muted from your ears, you can do that too. Now, where this starts to get really interesting is I started thinking about this. I'm like, okay, well, so everything I've just described so far is great for the person podcasting with people in the same room. Like it would be fantastic for that. But of course, I don't generally podcast with people in the same room. I podcast with people who sometimes are literally on the other side of the world. And so there are more features. It connects to your Mac, as I said, via USB. And there is sound that can go from your Mac out to it. So I could grab the sound from your, from our VoIP connection. We use StreamYard, but it could be Skype or Discord or whatever. It doesn't matter. And I could route that out to one of the channels here because there are actually 2 stereo sends from the Mac to this mixer that are assignable. Great. Okay. So now I've got, a fader for Dave's local mic, a fader for Pete's remote mic. Great. I have my sound effects fader. Great. I have another fader from the second stream coming from my Mac that might be, say, listener questions that I'm playing from the Mac. Okay. So now I can mix that. So far, we're checking all the boxes, right? This is good. Nice. My Mac can capture the sound coming back from this, either the full mix. So if I want to use the mixer to actually mix things and send it back, I can do that. Or it's a multi-channel capable device. So I could grab the audio from every channel and record it in, say, Logic. And that includes the channel that's coming from you out from StreamYard to this mixer, back into the Mac, into Logic, but processed by the mixer. And yes,
now my head hurts. I'm sorry.
But it's like all the things, but it's like processed.
They have covered every base. Oh my goodness.
And there's processing. There's effects like reverb and delay. There's compression on this. Every right? Like, so it's got all the things. It sounds good. Here's the part. As I'm going through this, I'm like, okay, so the one thing I'm missing though is I need that headphone output to be able to go back to you, because I need to send you a signal that doesn't have your voice in it, because it would be on a slight delay and that would drive you batty. You don't want to hear that. Well, they have a little
Oh,
feature.
Dave, au contraire. I love hearing my own voice. Can't you tell?
So they have a little feature on the headphone outputs. You can pick any one of them to be sent back to the Mac via USB. So now I could create a headphone mix, right? Like they've thought of all the things. I can't, like, I need to rip apart my studio and record an episode with this, or at least a dummy episode with it, which I've actually sort of done already. And I really haven't found it seems like they've caught everything. It's almost like they listened to what I needed and built it. And maybe they did.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, somebody who clearly understands sound engineering put the thought into this.
And podcast needs, like, because I've used like the Rodecaster and things like that. And there's always like there's the asterisk of, I can't really get the mix I want back in. So I've got to do that in a different way. And it's fine. But, but like this. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so they're not giving this away, but what you've got up on the screen in your screen share shows a couple other. So this is at $7.99.
Yes.
And it looks like there's something up there for $5.99 and $3.99. Are those the same companies?
No, not the same company.
No,
one of them is the Rodecaster. Yeah, no, it would like this would be, even for me, this would be a little overkill, right? Because I don't need 4 mic pre's. I could do 2. So there's maybe this is their first foray into this at Mackie. Maybe there's a world where there's the Mackie DLZ Creator Mini or something, 2 years down the road. I don't know where.
Well, with 4, I mean, that could be, it could be a mixer for a band or.
You wouldn't. Yes, it technically could. Okay. It's not built for that, but yeah, I mean, it's got all the outputs. So yes, I could mix a band with 4 signals. I mean, as long as you were doing like just vocals, which sometimes happens. So yeah, I mean, in a pinch, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's a pretty cool. I'm really impressed by this device. So that's why I wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about it here. But my few minutes are now up. So I will keep us all posted as we go forward, on this. I know. It's a pretty cool little device. Yeah. I've been messing with it for a couple of weeks. I've been eager to talk about it, but I really wanted to like get into it and make sure that I understood it. Yeah. Before I started talking about it. But yeah, no, I'm impressed with this thing. So thanks for hanging out with us, folks.
Thank you indeed.
Great as always. Feedback at macgeekgab.com. I know we said it many times in the show, but you sending in your stuff is really the fuel that keeps us going here. So please keep sending it in. Thank you to all of you who do and have. Thank you to all of our premium subscribers at macgeekgab.com/premium. That's where you can go to learn more about that. It's not mandatory. It is very much appreciated. Thank you to CashFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Thank you to Meta for putting out yet another social media platform that is actually worth checking out. It's worth checking out Threads if you haven't yet. It's worth checking out. I'm curious to see how this whole landscape evolves. Yeah, it's good. And of course, I'm out there at Dave Hamilton on Threads because it takes whatever your Instagram username is or was, and it remains, and it just sort of clones it over there. So yeah. So your name is already reserved, I think, is how that kind of works.
Well, the problem is I don't have my username on Instagram is not Pilot Pete, so I'll have to go figure out.
Figure that out. Oh, there you go. Yeah, right. Yeah, go now. Right. Yeah.
Bye.
Speaking of Pilot Pete, he go listen to his other podcast. So There I Was. It's a great one for aviation enthusiasts, and I've got 2 other shows that I do: Business Brain for entrepreneurs and Gig Gab for working musicians. Come check those out. Mac Geek Gab merch is available. Get your merch now, and you can have it if you're coming to Macstock. So that'd be fun. And we will see you at Macstock. We've got some fun things planned. We'll probably talk more in depth about that in the next episode. That's what we got. Thanks for hanging out. Check out our sponsors, of course. MacGeekGab.com/sponsors will tell you all about the things that are current. And of course, the links we mentioned in today's show, Notion.com/MacGeekGab, Zocdoc.com/MGG, and LinkedIn.com/MGG. Pete, for the people who aren't on video, what's your shirt say?
upside down. It's hard to read. Oh, I'll just look in the camera. Don't get caught.
Made on